Minister, I don't think anyone could argue with the need for increased safety in construction and related trades. And next to farming, it has consistently recorded the highest levels of injuries and deaths. According to the Health Safety Authority figures, for last year, 7 workers lost their lives in construction. And between 2008 and 2019, 107 fatal incidents took place in the construction sector. Between 1989 and 2016, a total of 1,616 work-related fatal accidents were reported to the HSA. Over a quarter of all those involved in construction businesses or other businesses engaged in construction activity. So one of the lessons of the pandemic for us all was the wholly inadequate system of regulation and safety enforcement that we have in this state in all workplaces. The HSA proved itself to be abysmal in enforcing COVID regulations or safeguarding workers, as we saw in meat plants and elsewhere. This state doesn't generally like regulating, and especially doesn't like regulating sectors like construction. So witness the defective apartment scandals or the pyrite or mica scandals, all failures on behalf of the state to enforce regulations and standards. This bill fits into a lot of efforts on regulation, set up on a regulation regime which largely fails to regulate the problems in the sector. So the question for us is, will this bill address the safety issues in construction and quarrying? Forcing workers to have a licence in itself will not stop fatalities and injuries on building sites. What we need is a system of real oversight on standards and safety on sites. We need to have a HSA that actually enforces safety regulations that we do have. The question again is, will this system of licensing for the various trades in itself address the chronic safety issues affecting workers? The bill seems to suggest that the issue is just with workers themselves and not their working environment or the pressures of the industry on them to make profits and cut corners. The closest parallel that we could think of to this system is to emulate the CPC courses that bus drivers, truck drivers and taxi drivers must undertake. And again, a system is overseen in this case by the RSA and sees a plethora of private tutors giving designated courses on specific themes. And every 5 years, a new licence is issued to those drivers, without which they cannot work. Has the CPC, the Certificate of Professional Competence in Driving, resulted in a big improvement in road safety or standards? If you talk to most bus drivers, truck drivers or taxi drivers, they would say no. It's largely a box-ticking exercise that gives the appearance of regulation, but of course does nothing to address the actual issues faced by workers that may lead to accidents or injuries, such as road conditions, long shifts, poor working conditions, etc. It's a regulation of sorts which largely leaves companies free to continue on as before and place the onus for safety on the drivers and their behaviour. It's extremely doubtful that this entire system will have any good, bad effect on safety. And I fear this is true of this, what may happen with this bill. I just want to take a minute to talk about why I think sometimes we regulate in all of the wrong areas. It's good we're having this, but simultaneously we need more regulation on the rights of workers at work. Late last year, 4 workers were sacked from Murphy International, and Unite, their union, believes they were unfairly singled out and victimised. One of them was a shop steward. And as we know, Murphy International is part of a giant Murphy group of companies operating throughout Ireland, the UK and Canada, and last year generated 1.47 billion in revenue. That's a huge sum of money, and that revenue was generated not by Murphy themselves, but by the group's committed workforce, including the 4 Unite members that have been dismissed. Unite views this attack on any member as an attack on all of its 1.4 million members of the union, and will do everything in its power, using every resource, legal and public-facing campaigns, to ensure that those members are reinstated. They're loyal members of staff with a combined 50 years of service, and it's appalling that they were left to face Christmas, the winter and the ongoing cost of living crisis without an income. And as we face into the worst economic and cost of living crisis, we have the financial clout of Murphy International and this is completely unacceptable when it means that it leaves real workers facing a very, very tough future. And therefore, I want to argue that this regulation on workers' training should be combined with a regulation on the behaviour of companies and regulation on the rights that workers have.